Breaking character refers to the moment when an actor or a performer steps out of the role they are portraying, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and ceases to act within the confines of their scripted persona. This can occur for a variety of reasons, such as forgetting lines, reacting spontaneously to an unexpected event, or deliberately choosing to address the audience or acknowledge the performance's artificiality. Unintentional instances, such as laughing during a scene that doesn't warrant laughter, are typically seen as a lapse in professionalism and can impact the overall flow of the performance. Right, Jimmy Fallon? And if it happens on a national institution like Saturday Night Live, it's probably not surprising that it happens in professional wrestling. I'm Singer Siete for 7 Wrestling. Let's take a look at 7 wrestlers caught breaking character on live TV. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and lock that notification bell in the sharpshooter. Number 1. Mamacita. Okay, if you assumed an entry entitled Mamacita was about Eddie Guerrero in China, you'd be surprisingly wrong. Now, some booking decisions are just slam dunks. When Stone Cold became the hottest thing the industry had seen since the heyday of Hulk Hogan, you give him the world title at WrestleMania 14 while Mike Tyson is the special guest enforcer. When people were begging for Batista to turn on his Evolution cronies and break out on his own, you have him smash his way through the Royal Rumble, then Batista bomb his former mentor to oblivion at WrestleMania 21. And when the fans are frothing at the mouth to see WCW's last remaining hope Sting take out the hottest heel faction in recorded history, you have him roll into Starrcade 97 and defeat Hollywood Hulk Hogan as clean as a whistle. But WCW could screw up a one-car funeral. So of course they did. I know that saying is lame, but my dad used to say that all the time, so please forgive me. But yeah, during the original invasion of the New World Order back in 1996, the fun-loving Surfer Sting would completely change his look with a little inspiration from Brandon Lee's Crow, and the fans simply could not get enough of it. He didn't even wrestle. They just had him up in the rafters brooding for like a year. Over a year, actually. Occasionally, he'd repel into the ring to wreck house, but other than that, there are no Sting matches during that time other than some house shows early on. And we loved it. We were desperate for Sting to finally get his hands on Hollywood Hulk Hogan in a singles match for the WCW World title. It was literally the intro screen to WCW NWO Revenge. Great game. So like we said, Starrcade 1997 should have been a slam dunk, but they got way too cute with it. Instead of Sting just beating Hulk Hogan clean, they had the referee give Sting a fast count, then the newly acquired talent Bret Hart came back and restarted the match, thus allowing Sting to make Hogan submit, which was clever-ish, I guess. It played into the thing where Bret Hart had been screwed by a referee in the WWE a few weeks earlier. Problem was, that referee's count wasn't fast. Yeah. For whatever reason, be it Hogan's backstage politics or whatever, the ref counted a regular classic 3, making it look like Hogan had just beaten Sting fairly and squarely. So yeah, Sting looked like a loser, and Bret Hart looked like an idiot. WCW. And the post-match celebration did not help matters as the WCW wrestlers stormed the ring to pay their respects to Sting. Okay, maybe it was a little out of character for the brooding Avenger to jump into the arms of the Giant like they were celebrating an NLDS clincher, but it wasn't so weird. What was so weird was when Sting looked directly into the camera and shouted something that was unintelligible, followed by a very hard to miss Mamacita! Mamacita? This guy who has been up in the rafters for the better part of a year and a half, who stalked the NWO and struck fear into the hearts of the whole promotion. His first words are, Mamacita? Ay caramba. Number 2, Oosey Goosey. 30 years ago, our tribal chief Roman Reigns and his cousins, the Usos, launched a new faction known as the Bloodline and they've been a dominant force ever since. Okay, maybe 30 years is an exaggeration, it just feels that long. And that isn't us complaining. We get that the long, plodding, storyline heavy matches aren't for everyone, but we've been digging them, for the most part. But around the time of the 40th match with Brock Lesnar, it felt like the act had done everything it was gonna do. That is until they added a very unexpected ingredient, upper mid-card bad guy Sami Zayn. Zayn would first approach the Bloodline on April 22, 2022, looking for assistance in a lumberjack match against Drew McIntyre. It was pretty much just Zayn sucking up to the powerful faction, but he'd become a more common fixture in their storyline as the summer went on. And to the surprise of many, he'd become a key component in keeping the storyline interesting. You had Jey Uso, who seemed very happy to have Sami on board, Jey Uso, who simply didn't trust Sami and was always mad, and Roman, who would masterfully pretend to like Sami as a way to keep Jey Uso vying for his attention. Oh, and Solo Sikoa was there as well. My personal favorite moment was when Roman acted like Zayn shouldn't be wearing a Bloodline shirt, only to gift him with his own honorary Uso shirt. The crowd went on the whole roller coaster ride of emotions, feeling for Sami, buying into every turn they were taking us on, booing when it seemed like Roman was kicking him out, and then exploding when it was clear that he was still in. And this was a heel faction. It's great stuff. Even Solo liked it. But the reason this made the list is for the many ways in which Zayn would make the various members of the Bloodline break character during this amazing run, in particular the infamous Usi segment that took place on the October 28, 2022 episode of SmackDown. In it, Zayn was coming to Jey's defense by saying that he just hadn't been feeling Usi lately. The crowd picked up on this and started chanting Usi as Reigns and Jey buried their faces in their hands, trying not to laugh. In fact, Jey spends most of the segment trying to appear mad and stoic, but needing to cover his face with his hands. And as he tried to turn his back to the camera, Reigns holds him in place and says, "Stay right here." So good. Who show's allowed to show real clips? In an interview with Metro, Jey Uso would confess to not being able to keep a straight face, saying, "It's probably one of the dopest, funnest, coolest segments on TV, but it was also the most embarrassing for me, Us, because I was just stuck laughing on TV." Laughing? What? No. I just thought Jey Uso had the itchiest face ever. Oh, speaking of Usi, number 3, Brotherly Dud. WrestleMania 40 was a pretty epic show. The first night main event that saw The Rock make his first in-ring return in forever, Damian Priest cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase, Sami Zayn ending Gunther's epic Intercontinental title reign, and then whatever happened in the second night main event, I don't even remember. Biggest disappointment though, that had to be the brother versus brother match between Jimmy and Jey Uso. This match should have been amazing, right? They're twins. They've been beating each other up since they were in the friggin' womb. You got Rikishi complaining, why aren't these fetuses getting more of a push on TV? Sorry, I just feel like we're overrun with parents who are a little too protective of their grown-ass professional children. But yeah, this match was not good. Maybe it's because their movesets were too similar. Maybe it was the law of diminishing super kicks. Maybe it was because they felt the need to do that overused trope where the bad guy asks for mercy when they are clearly lying and the good guy falls for it. You can even hear people in the crowd audibly screaming no. Way to make Jey look like a friggin' idiot, guys. But sure enough, Jimmy would hit that 40th super kick of the match and then rock Jey with a big ol' splash. That wasn't enough. Captain Yeet kicked out. Jimmy was in shock. He'd retreat to a corner, try to figure out his next plan of attack. Biggest match of his life. A solo bout against his brother on the biggest stage of them all, WrestleMania. What could be bigger? Well, Jimmy would spot his daughter Jayla in the front row, not watching the match. He seemed to be yelling at her, "Jayla, get off the damn phone. Watch your daddy. Come on." Probably not where his focus would be in a real match, but I think every parent gets this. Jey would of course rally and win, but who knows? Maybe in the storyline this will be brought up 20 years from now when Jayla joins the Bloodline and Jimmy can blame her for distracting him during this match. But in her defense, this was a very hard match to pay attention to. Oh, and speaking of WrestleMania disasters, number 4, Brett breaks. WrestleMania 11 is a garbage WrestleMania. There, Somebody had to say it. Coming to us live from the Hartford Civic Center. Wait, that can't be right. No. Okay, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and now Hartford. The insurance capital of the world, according to Wikipedia. Oof, man, Connecticut is just going to come at me in full force in the comment section. Sorry, this show had big shoes to fill. Coming on the heels of one of the best WrestleManias of all time, WrestleMania 10, that show opened with Bret and Owen Hart putting on an absolute all-time classic, Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels introducing the mainstream world to the ladder match concept with another all-time classic, and the show finishing off with new champion Bret the Hitman Hart being carried around the ring on the shoulders of his peers. And this show opened with Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid hitting on Playmate of the Year Jenny McCarthy, and musical guest Salt and Peppa groping Bret Hart. What a man. From there, we'd get the Allied Powers against the Blue Brothers, an Intercontinental title match that ended by disqualification, and The Undertaker against a way past his prime King Kong Bundy. Not a WrestleMania moment in the bunch. After a bit, we'd finally get to the I Quit bout between Bret the Hitman Hart and Bob Backlund. It was a rematch of the Survivor Series Throw in the Towel World title match that ended after Owen Hart managed to convince his mother Helen Hart to submit on Bret's behalf. The thought being that in this match, the only way for Bret to lose is if he submitted himself, and to spice up the proceedings a bit, Rowdy Roddy Piper would serve as the special guest referee, holding the microphone out to the competitors when it was possible one of them was ready to say, "I quit." Look at Piper with that corded microphone. Oh, sorry. You see, kids, we used to have these things called cords. Well, for whatever reason, the crowd said "I quit" long before either Bret or Bob did. This match was D-U-L-L dull, which was surprising because their Survivor Series match was pretty good, and an earlier match they had on Raw was actually great. In his book, Hitman, My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling, Bret would say the reason the match was so bad was Vince McMahon's fault. In it, he'd say, "I was dreading my match with Bob because I knew Vince's idea that the two of us would only use submission holds in the match was guaranteed to stink the building out." Oh, yeah, that'd do it all right. Not helping matters was the fact that the match's finish involved Bret reversing Backlund's trademark crossface chicken wing. Reversing Backlund's crossface chicken wing into one of his own and forcing him to say "I quit," but he didn't actually say "I quit," he just kind of went blah. Guess that was good enough for Piper because he ended the match right there. Ugh, what a disaster. In fact, the only real highlight of this bout was when Bret had Backlund locked into a leg submission. Piper kept asking Bob if he was ready to call it quits, and he refused. So an amused Piper thrust the mic into Bret's face and said, "Hart?" Bret could audibly be heard laughing and then saying no. So kudos to Piper for getting the very serious excellence of execution to break character. Number 5. Viper with a Heart of Gold. Randy Orton used to be kind of a dick. The stories of him being a first-class, grade-A douchebag are plentiful. He tore a toilet off of a wall, destroyed Rochelle Lowen's baggage, and even gave newer members of the crew a unique handshake. He'd put his hand somewhere else on his own person before shaking their hand. Come on, don't make me spell it out for you. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the downsides of being a handsome, ripped, wealthy young celebrity, and he's even owned up to his past jerkiness, saying, "That was my armor. I was an asshole. I think because I wanted people to respect me. It wasn't coming from a place of confidence. I just know that I grew out of that phase. Thank God that I did." See, the Randy Orton that chewed out Kofi Kingston for being stupid is a supportive mentor to someone like Javon Evans when he makes a mistake. Good old Papa Orton. And one of the first signs of Randy's change of heart took place back at the 2016 Survivor Series in one of my favorite Survivor Series bouts of all time. It was the superstars of Raw, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Chris Jericho, and the reigning Universal Champion Kevin Owens taking on the SmackDown team of Shane McMahon, Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, and the WWE Champion AJ Styles. During the bout, Shane O'Mac would go for his trademark coast-to-coast dropkick on Roman Reigns, the big dog would pop up while Shane was in mid-flight and absolutely rock him with a spear. It was so violent, almost looked like Shane DDT'd Reigns in midair, and McMahon was out of it. He even weirdly, instinctively kicked out of what was, I'm sure, was supposed to have been the pinfall that eliminated him, but it was clear to everybody that his night was over. Orton and Wyatt tossed Reigns out of the ring to give the ref some time to check in on Shane, but before he went on to continue the match, Orton actually stopped by Shane McMahon's son, who was seated at ringside, to let him know that everything with his father was going to be okay. Now, maybe it's a stretch to say this was breaking character, seeing as Shane was Randy's team captain, but you could argue that Randy caring about anyone other than himself is way out of character. When asked about it on Twitter, Orton would say, "I'm a father. I know what it's like to have your kids ringside when shit goes sideways." Good guy, that new era Randy, but still not shaking his hand. Number 6, Epic Gale. There are a lot of interesting what-ifs in professional wrestling. What if the curtain call never happened? Then Triple H would have won that year's King of the Ring, and it's possible that Austin 3:16 and the rise of Steve Austin never would have become a thing. Like we said earlier, what if WCW didn't get too clever at Starrcade 1997? Then you have a wildly popular, dominant champion in Sting, and a newly arrived virtuous Bret Hart ready to go to war with the NWO, and wouldn't Bret and Sting have made an amazing main event for the following year's Starrcade? And one of my favorite what-ifs is, what if the really talented women of the Divas era had hit their prime during the women's evolution? Trish Stratus, Mickie James, and Beth Phoenix did the best they could with what they were given, but wow, imagine them today. Now, women are trained like wrestlers who can put together a coherent match and tell a story. Back then, oftentimes they learned to bump, learned a flashy move or two, and not much else. And that's not a knock on Fit Finlay. By all accounts, he did an awesome job with what he had. That's a knock on a company that didn't want the fitness models to wrestle like the guys. Add to that list Gale Kim, a talent who seemed to have all of the tools to make it in the industry at the time, but for whatever reason was never given very much of a chance. Gale Kim, who would actually prove that the WWE was missing out by quitting WWE and going to TNA Wrestling, and doing a pretty damn good job elevating their Knockouts division. And the reason she makes this list is because of the way she actually did quit the WWE. On the August 1st, 2011 episode of Monday Night Raw, the women's roster was squaring off in a battle royal that would determine who would face the Divas champion Kelly Kelly at SummerSlam. The result was Beth Phoenix would win a whole-ass battle royal in a little under 4 minutes, which should tell you the kind of time the WWE was dedicating to the women's division back then. But what's really memorable about this event is what happened at the very beginning of the match. Immediately after the bell ring, Phoenix would ram into Melina and knock her out of the ring, and as Melina was returning to the back, Gale Kim seemed to think, screw it, and eliminated herself. Apparently, she didn't think anyone would care or notice, and unfortunately, she was right. It was reported that she and Melina walked up the ramp, hugging and laughing the whole time. In a Reddit Ask Me Anything, Kim would address her self-elimination by saying, it was uneventful, lol. Think a few people noticed, but I just had had enough and was done, and I wanted to say again that I would have never done that if it would have compromised anything else in the match, because it did not matter. I did it, and I don't regret doing it either. Once word got out what had actually happened during the match, the WWE higher-ups were reportedly not very happy with Gale. Her release was not granted, and she had to wait out the remainder of her contract. Number 7. 2 words, I'm sorry. Triple H has had some pretty memorable moments as a good guy. The version 2.0 of DX with the New Age Outlaws, Chyna, and X-Pac was great. His run with Shawn Michaels in the latter years of DX could be fun. There were some moments in his feud with Randy Orton that were just awesome. But the real Triple H, my Triple H, that guy is a dastardly bad guy. The game? King of Kings? Cerebral Assassin? That ruffian, that rapscallion, he was a real jerk. But I guess even the heeliest of heels sometimes regret their actions. It was during the January 19th, 2015 episode of Monday Night Raw where Triple H was sitting at ringside. a young man who apparently was quite a big Triple H fan started calling out his name. Triple H would tell ABC News, "As we were sitting ringside, the young man was behind me and he was chanting my name over and over. It was just me being in character. I said with eyebrows up, 'Hey, stop messing with me. I'm trying to do my job over here.' Well, this upset the youngster, 8-year-old Lucian Deering, and apparently he burst into tears. Feeling horrible, Triple H broke character to console him. He'd say, 'I broke out of character and put my head to his and messed his hair up. I just said, hey buddy, it's okay. I'm just playing around.'" Triple H's wife Stephanie, who was also a dastardly heel at this time, joined in to cheer the kiddo up. They even brought him backstage for some photos and some swag. Oh, and that noise you're hearing in the background? That's just Jim Cornette banging his head against a wall because a heel didn't act like a heel. But, you know, good on them, although it's risky, because the last time Triple H broke character, it did not end so well for him. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other times wrestlers broke character? If so, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and pedigree that notification bell. Till next time, I'm Singer7 for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.